Okay, can I ask how you transitioned, how you went into A&R for a few years?
I did, yeah. I made an album um, that came out in Europe, and we were unable to get an American record company to release it. And I thought it was a decent album. I felt good about it, um, but it made me think that possibly my time was up, that I'd kind of run my race and it was time to think about doing something else. I can't, I'm very black and white. There's not a lot of grey in me. Um, and I just decided one day that I was going to stop being a performer and a songwriter. There I go again. and
Yeah. Yeah.
and try and get a job of some kind. And I went to visit my publisher, who was an Englishman, and I'd first signed with him as a music publisher when I was living back in London, and he had moved out to Los Angeles. He was the head of Island Records Publishing, and he'd set up an office in Los Angeles, and we began our friendship all over again. And I went in to talk to him to see if he had any ideas about what I should do. And he said, "Well, it's funny you should come in today because I just got off the phone with Chris Blackwell, and Chris is quite anxious to have some sort of A&R presence here on the West Coast. Are you interested?" And I'd never done A&R before. I'd had A&R men, but I hadn't paid enough attention to know what that entailed. But it sounded like a pretty good thing to me, so I just said, "Yeah, I can do that." Yeah, and I
Fake
became
it.
the A&R guy for Island Records on the West Coast.
Fake it till you make it.
That seems like the best gig. If you're not a musician or a songwriter, that seems like the best gig ever.
I thought so. I
So,
thought so. Yeah.
so who did you find anyone that
Um,
of interest?
I found a band called Bourgeois Tag. Um, I uh, worked with Rain Parade. Remember Rain
Oh,
Parade?
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I worked with the Long Riders.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Um,
Oh,
and I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, I was. That's a band called the Prime Movers, who are a Los Angeles band.
hmm.
We signed them to Island as well. It's pretty productive. I did it for about a year and a half with Island, and then I moved on to Wyndham Hill. Um, but during my time at Island, it was kind of a rock and roll experience for me,
Yeah.
going out every night and getting into the office at 11 and then staying in Hollywood until 2 in the morning, going out
Yeah.
and scouting
Yeah.
bands and songwriters. It was a great time.
And in the '80s, those were some fun years.
I'm sorry.
In the '80s, this was in the '80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
Yeah.
during the hair metal scene, wasn't it? Or was
I'm the
like?
guy who turned down Soundgarden for
Oh, nice. Good job.
for Island Records.
Mm, anybody regret that?
um, I, it was just not my taste at the
Hmm.
time. Commercially, yeah, I guess it's regretful ultimately,
Mm,
but uh, artistically, I don't really have any. You have to go with your emotions
yeah.
when you're particularly when you're an artist that has become an A&R person. Um, I was never really capable of thinking on a corporate level. There was always that big percentage of artists still in me, even when I was doing A&Rs, and I reacted to music emotionally
Mm,
rather than
right.
practically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
as a musician. Yeah. Okay. So were you writing or doing anything musically for yourself during that time? Or
No,
you really, okay.
I really did, give it up at that point. A&Ring was a full-time job. As is being a singer-songwriter, and it was a case of doing one or the other, and I just wanted to do my job the best I could.
Yeah, and Windham Hill was a completely different beast.
Yeah.
Because that was
Yeah.
that's when I was working at the Wave at the time. At that time, I think that was all. There was a lot of new age music from Windham Hill. We got a lot of that
Well,
stuff.
the reason I went to Windham Hill was because they told me they were going to be starting a vocal label. What was it? Was it called High Street?
Yes.
I think it's
Yes.
High
Oh, I
Street.
didn't know that.
And they were going to have a vocal label, and they wanted someone A&Ring it that was familiar with vocal music. But within 3 months of me being there, I think they shelved the idea of the vocal label, and I just kind of became an A&R man for Windham Hill type music. I was completely unfamiliar with that kind of music. I just I didn't know where to find it. I didn't know whether it was good when I did find it, and so it wasn't my best A&R period.
It wasn't the best fit.
Just wasn't the right fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then how did you end up deciding, or did that set you down the path for going back to writing?
When I began working at Windham Hill, I had committed to playing a festival in England. Fairport Convention have an annual festival that they put on. And they approached me in '86 to play the festival, and I accepted their invitation, and I went over there and did my set with the band, with Fairport, and got a pretty amazing reception. And I walked off backstage, and Robert Plant was standing there backstage, and he cornered me and told me in no uncertain terms that I should stop messing about with this A&R stuff, and I should get back on the horse that threw me and start writing again and start performing again, because if today's performance was any indication, you owe it to your audience to do that. And I took it to heart. And I think that was part of the reason that I never really settled into the Windham Hill thing too, because I took that back to California with me, and I just had this thing at the back of my mind. Well, if Robert thinks I should be performing and writing, maybe I should seriously think about performing and writing again.
There doesn't seem like there should be any question. Robert Plant.
Oh, okay.
Who else do you
Robert
need?
Plant of Led Zeppelin. Thank you.
I sometimes wonder what would have happened if Robert hadn't been standing back there when I walked off stage.